Hi, Ray. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Michelle. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you.
Good.
I'm so excited to talk to you today about AI and its applicability in manufacturing and supply chains. With your focus being with that, can you tell me, it's very intriguing nowadays that we're hearing so much about AI related to large language models and generative AI, and seeing that being applied to office productivity and using ChatGPT to create content. Can you tell me, are you seeing that AI being applied in manufacturing and supply chain?
ChatGPT and these large language models, AI has suddenly shifted to become very mainstream and very quickly. And what we do know is when technologies become mainstreams, like mobile phones or the internet before that, it will have an impact on your business. And the companies that figure out how to take advantage of that, that's unique to them, are going to have a competitive advantage. And the ones that don't will be struggling to keep up. So, and what I'm seeing in the supply chain and manufacturing, having worked in this area for about 25 years, is there's always been this pursuit of digitalization, of using technology to improve efficiency, to improve inventory and things like that. But historically, they've been very challenged in disparate data, quality of data. And then once you get, sometimes it takes years to sort of get the data in the right place. And then you need very specialized data scientists to build models and to really go from to take advantage of predictive models and anomaly detection, to go from acting on leading indicators versus getting lagging indicators and saying, okay, well, shoot, let's not let that happen again. But these were reserved for, these are like very large investments that, you start thinking that it's fairly straightforward. But what I've seen is companies spend lots of dollars over years to implement a successful solution, and they continue to do that. But to kind of fast forward now with generative AI, what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years even is AI and generative AI and AI agents are now able to really accelerate this digital transformation process. That what was used to take years to implement now can take months or weeks. And so the companies that recognize that and that can take advantage of specific use cases and using generative AI and the right partners that know how to tap into that technologies, you can start achieving these outcomes in specific use cases in a very short amount of time. And then as generative AI and large language models get better and better, and they're moving at exponential pace, that if you're already leveraging it, then you're just going to ride that technology wave and gain a significant advantage.
So with that, what I hear from companies, whether they're in manufacturing, supply chain, or any industry, is always like, where do I get started with AI? What would you advise them to do to get started?
No, that's a great question, right? It's and I think you have to have a longer term vision, but you can't be paralyzed on boiling the ocean and having a big vision, right? So I think you have to look across your organization for different opportunities that are what I would call low-hanging fruit, which is low effort to implement with high return on investment. So you almost need to take a survey of your organization and look at areas, whether it's improving sales growth or improving operations or improving inventory costs. Those, as you look into that, I think taking action on is better than being paralyzed with planning. The other thing that I hear commonly is that you know, my data is not good enough, or I have data siloed, I have spreadsheets, I have humans entering this data, I can't trust, how can I get started? I need to take care of that problem first. What
Very
I'm
common.
finding, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Very common problem.
It's
Yes.
a very common problem, like data governance, and you're almost paralyzed by that, especially having multiple manufacturing sites. But what I'm finding that with AI agents and large language models, it can really accelerate that process of bringing the data together. So in the past, it was very manual data engineering projects that people had to map into a single data lake. You still have to do some of that, but large language models and AI agents now can really, it doesn't have, your data doesn't have to be precisely named the same thing for it to know the connections between the two. And as you start training it to understand the nomenclature and the terminology of your business, it can automate, like I would say 80 to 90% of that task. So then don't be paralyzed by the thought that your data is not perfect. Just, I think that has become more a smaller stepping stone. Yeah.
Yeah, so by industry standards, when you embarked on a data science project, about 80% of the time and effort went into the data munch, the data engineering kind of activity. And so if you can reduce that, you're really reducing the time to value for an organization. So that makes total sense, that, especially with the natural language part of it, where you can ask just common questions, really helps to expedite the onboarding of new use cases. So, you know, in the area that is your area of specialty in the manufacturing and supply chain, you know, industrial AI use cases are really starting to proliferate. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the common use cases that you see in industrial AI for manufacturers and distributors.
Right. I think one of the first things I see is supply chain management. And as we know, like in order to really have an efficient supply chain and carry efficient inventory and planning and resources, you have to have very accurate demand forecasting, right? And now there are systems out there that do that, like SAP and other ERP systems have fairly sophisticated demand forecasting, but it does take consultants, it does take data science experts to help like really refine it to your company's products, right? Because your company may not just have one product that you forecast, it has a variety of products. You might have thousands of products, and each one may have different factors in terms of its demand, forecasting its demand. And you need to forecast demand from like a 12-month standpoint to 6 months to a quarter to what's going to happen this month. And all of those things need to kind of be tied together. And what I'm finding is with AI technologies now, just like with the data engineering part, it's now become much more accessible for companies who in the past couldn't justify that level of investment to be able to implement pretty sophisticated demand forecasting models that has a huge impact on their bottom line. And so, for example, many of these companies for decades have used spreadsheets that come from ERP systems, but because they're not able to modify those systems, export the data into spreadsheets. And there's usually within an organization, a group of folks, what I'm finding like 2 or 3 folks that understand how to create the spreadsheets, work with different stakeholders and come up with this forecast. And I think there is a huge opportunity to automate that process. Many leaders that I talk to, talk about their aging workforce where, these forecasts come from this small set of people, but you have to start codifying what they do and operationalizing it. And AI, and with generative AI, this is a perfect use case where you can train these agents to understand the decisions that are being made, and then over time they get better and better. And so we have worked with a lot of customers who have been using these manual methods to help them make better decisions in the demand forecasting. And if you have a really accurate demand forecast, then obviously a lot of things fall into place. Not just inventory levels for the products you sell, but all the materials and resources and things that you need to build those products become efficient as well. So very likely sometimes see 5 to 10% reduction in inventory and material costs.
So that solves multiple problems. So you're helping to transform the organization in terms of the workforce, the generational shifts that are happening in the workforce. You're helping them save real dollars and save real time in terms of their production, as well as all of their inventory costs. So that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about a client or customer that you worked with that, tell us their story. Like, how did they go from not using AI to now using industrial AI? And what did they accomplish? Like, what was their goals and what were the benefits out of that?
Yeah, I want to talk about a customer that we've worked with for several years now. It's an automotive supplier in Brazil named MTU Thompson. They provide aftermarket parts in the automotive space. So think thousands of different products that they offer. Lead times are in the months to 6 months to get the components in from suppliers from various regions right around the world. So a complex global supply chain, and those 1,000 products require procurement of sometimes 10 to 50 different components in order to put those. And those components you buy can be used in multiple products. So it's fairly complex in terms of, okay, this month, how much should I purchase from each supplier? What should be my safety stock based on my demand forecast and things like that. And there's a lot of other bottlenecks along the way, like once you have the product, there's an inspection period and there's the customs time. All of that has to be accounted for, and so they had been doing it in a manual process, but there are some big players that they compete with, that they, as a smaller organization, they view this as a way to gain a competitive advantage. And so initially, they worked with a consulting firm to really help improve and automate this process. And over time, a solution was built, but it was a bit of a black box, and it had to keep going back to the consultant, because it's a lot of times these models, when they're deployed, it's not a one and done. And markets change, business dynamics change, and so having like a data scientist, an expert in the loop, is critical to evolve those models, right? And then that's the model that we provide, which is a platform that allows a solution to be accessible to your team and not be a black box. But we also provide expert data scientists in the loop to work with you on changes in the model. And so what we did was we really looked at their business and their products and really grouped them. And it's not just one model, it's about 9 models that we forecast, where we look at high certainty products to low certainty products, low volume products to high volume products. And you kind of categorize that into 9 boxes, 9 categories of products. And we train models based on that. And so once we did that, then we were able to essentially train an AI agent to give recommendations on the month-to-month basis, how much you should purchase from all the suppliers. So instead of manually determining that every month across hundreds of suppliers, we provide a list, and then we'll say, for these suppliers on these components, this is the quantity we recommend. And then there's a certainty, like a red, yellow, green that we put there. If it's green, you go ahead and just submit the order. If it's yellow, review it, understand why, make changes. And then if it's red, we will work with you to understand why it's red. Evolve the model if possible, but obviously there are in any business there are unforeseen circumstances, and so it just requires continue to require human intervention on those. But typically, like only about 2 or 3 of the recommendations are yellow or red. So so the results there were fairly impressive out of the gate, because using human intuition, most organizations are likely overstocking because you don't want to run out. And so with our models in place, we were able to reduce their inventory by 100,000, approximately 100,000 units month over month. And then over time, then we would work with them to see the performance of the model on a month-to-month basis. And so, for example, one month it looked like there were actually some shortages in some of the products, and we were able to determine why that was and evolve the model and then adjust as we go. So it is an ongoing initiative that we work with them, but with that, they've been able to improve their accuracy by about 35%, and the efficiency of coming up with those forecasts as well. So time savings and inventory levels.
So it sounds like that really the AI is really transforming their business, and you are helping their team to understand these models and be educated about how to actually not just use the models, but how to evolve the models over time, which is a huge transformation from their black box approach that they had before, where they had to always go outside to have the changes made. So this has got to make them also a lot more responsive or agile to changing market and business conditions like you described.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ray, we just talked about inventory management, and that's phenomenal. Can AI help manufacturers with their production scheduling and production manufacturing processes?
Absolutely. I think there are existing planning systems out there, and they provide production schedules, but many organizations are still doing this through spreadsheets and manual insights, right? And so we're working with a manufacturer that has a very complicated set of processes to develop a very complicated product at each step of the way. So it's very difficult for humans to understand where the bottlenecks are, and one of their biggest challenges was to improve throughput of those products. And so what we were able to do was really ingest that data into a system that allows AI to analyze where potential bottlenecks were, but also, given all the different constraints, help generate a daily schedule of who is working on what task, what should you complete at the end of the shift, and taking into consideration vacations and all of that. What's interesting with generative AI is that it can also use the latest innovations in reasoning models, which are getting better and better, to actually give you summaries and narratives on this complex schedule of what things you might be looking for. What are the bottlenecks here? And then as you complete the shift and you feed back the output of what was produced, it can also help adjust the next schedule, right? Because so if you got ahead, then
continuously improving, and it's not these long lag times. It's like in almost like real time if you're going from shift to shift and being able to make adjustments. That's pretty phenomenal.
Exactly. And I think also, the managers and the operations managers are no longer looking at a table of complex scheduling, but they can read a narrative and a summary that is automatically generated by AI, alerting you to potential conflicts or bottlenecks.
All right. Well, tell us how people can get in touch with you and learn more about how they could benefit similarly to MTE Thompson.
Yeah, absolutely. At rapidcanvas.ai, our website, if you look under solutions, there are 2 categories. One is supply chain management, and one is manufacturing. There are lots of information there and use cases. There is a place where you can ask to talk to somebody and contact us, and that's the perfect way to reach me.
That is really fantastic. That makes a huge difference. Well, thank you.
Thank you.